How to survive the 21st century is the topic of today's video, and it's an important one because we have more problems than we have had over the past decades, or at least the problems that we are seeing today have been created a long time ago, but they are more appearing than ever. What I wanted to talk with you about today is what those problems are and what you can do to solve your unique situation. The first problem that I see is civil unrest, which has become very prominent, and we're not just talking about Western countries. If we take a look at a place like Sri Lanka, where the government has really failed to deliver on the basic necessities, we're talking about securing food supply, we're talking about securing gas. I mean, that country is in big trouble. And of course also the port that now belongs to China. We're seeing a lot of developing countries that are leasing land to China, and where the Chinese government just goes into those countries, and they build infrastructure. The Chinese government builds infrastructure in those countries in order to get something in return, because nothing's for free, right? So they usually take out the minerals, they take out resources, or they just get land in those countries which are going to be used for ports and other important things, and that's unfortunately happening in places in Southeast Asia. It's happening all over the world, and it will continue to happen. And that of course creates civil unrest, and that's just one example. Also, because of what we see all over the world in terms of COVID restrictions, lockdowns, there has been a lot of civil unrest in Europe. There has been civil unrest in Canada. It's really been happening all over the place. People are complaining. People are finally speaking up to the fact that their governments have failed. Their governments have not delivered on their promises, or their governments are just trying to take freedom away. And that's of course not something that the people want to accept, because the people have lived lives of great abundance for a very long time, and now that all the freedom that their ancestors worked so hard for will be taken away from them is of course a fact that is pretty unacceptable. Another big problem that we're currently seeing is the retreat from globalization, and we're seeing this in North America, we're seeing this in Canada, the United States, as well as Europe. European countries are pulling out from importing products from China for a number of reasons. First of all, China has gotten pretty fat financially, and China has used that money to increase military power, to increase military spending, and China is more powerful than ever. And that's just one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is of course the fact that because of Western governments using outsourcing in different countries, in developing countries, that have led to the fact that certain countries now have a much bigger middle class than they ever had. Governments from developing countries are becoming more powerful, and they're gaining dominance. We're talking about many different facets here, right? We're talking about the military, we're talking about economic power and leverage, we're talking about anything that has to do with dominance, with destroying the current world order, which has already begun anyway. It has already begun, and it's a process that is ongoing right now. But anyway, Western countries, they want to pull out because they just don't want to support China. They don't want to see China become bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, Western countries have lost manufacturing, they have lost jobs, they have lost so much strength. And now it's to the point where it even has to do with climate change, because the biggest polluters in the world are of course Western countries. The United States is a big polluter, but also places like China and India are big polluters. So Western governments think that if they can stop, the economic process that's been made in the East and bring it back home and bring manufacturing back home, they can create a cleaner and greener planet. So all the process that's been made over the past decades should now be reversed and destroyed. Feminism is a big problem. It bothers most Western men that I have talked to in my life during the past years. It has become such an annoyance that Western men are unwilling to date Western women altogether. And the ones that are fortunate enough to have some kind of an online income, or the ones that are already retired, have of course the option to go to the East or Latin America or Africa or Eastern Europe to find more feminine women there. Feminism is a problem because it is not something that is easily revertible. It's possible for women to change over time because they can kind of see now, well, with us having, the equal economic strength, equal masculine strength that a guy has, it actually harms us because we destroyed the natural balance. It doesn't exist anymore. And women now actually see that they would have been much happier just being at home, taking care of the house, raising their children, if they have any today, because many Western women don't even have children anymore. They figure they would have been much happier being in a conservative, traditional relationship versus the feminist role that they took. Overpopulation is a big problem worldwide. I mean, if you take a look at places like Asia, the Middle East, I mean, the birth rate is just up there. You know, it's been coming down a bit in certain places, it's been increasing in some places, but it's just out of control. Our planet, you know, is inhabited by too many people, and of course there's a limited amount of resources available, and you could argue, well, we find a way around it. Well, in some cases that's true, in some cases it isn't, but overpopulation is a big problem for our planet. We're using more resources than we have. We're using our reserves. We're not thinking ahead. We're using things on a daily basis that we don't even need to use. We don't need to use plastic bags that you just throw away after one-time use. You know, that just doesn't make sense. We need reusable solutions, and unless our current population, we're talking about pretty much everyone, is willing to adjust, is willing to use less than what they used before, I think we're going to have more problems than we had, and chances are, you know, we're going to deplete our planet even more. Conflict and war is reality today. If you would have talked to somebody about it 10 years ago, they would have said, "You crazy, it won't happen, you know, they're just making a move, you know, they're just, you know, whatever." But right now today, we can see that the war in Ukraine is very real. I mean, we've been killing each other forever. You know, humans have always been killing another for different reasons, for, you know, gaining economic power, for gaining dominance, for, you know, destroying a culture, for not liking someone, whatever the reason was, you know, it is happening today as much as it was happening anytime. And it's sad because you would think that something like this is not supposed to happen in the 21st century, but it's just what it is. And I think now that we see how certain countries act and how the West responded to the Russian invasion, you know, pretty much being unwilling to solve it in a fair and, you know, controllable way, I think that people are more skeptical than ever to listen to Western governments because of how they responded. And tyranny is on the rise in countries worldwide, not just in Western countries where you have to run around with a digital COVID pass to prove who you are pretty much, but we're seeing it in places like Canada, we've seen it in places like Australia, we've seen it in places all over Asia, we've seen it in even Latin America, we've seen it in the Middle East, we've seen it everywhere. And it's concerning. With increasing tyranny, people are looking for options. Now the question is, what can you do? How can you survive the 21st century? The simple and only answer here is pretty much, you know, that you either stay where you're at and be happy with what you have, because wherever you're at, you cannot change the government, you cannot change the outcome of the place and how it evolves over time. That's not within your control. Unless you're like a high public figure, a high political figure, maybe you have some control, but unless that is the case, the only valid alternative that you have is to move to a place where some of these facts, some of these dangers, if you will, are just not as present as in your home country. If we take a look at feminism, if you're tired of dating Western women because they're feminists, you know, you don't like raising a family in the West for different reasons, you're scared of financial loss, you're scared of the relationship falling apart because you cannot be the man, whatever the reason is, move to a developing country and try it there. Just try it out, take the risk, do it. I mean, anything that you do in life is risk. I believe in taking risk, well calculated risk, I need to add, but doing it because there's no other way to do it, right? I mean, we're all scared of different things. If you stay in the West to get married to a Western woman, you're going to be scared that you did it and probably end up divorced or not happy or whatever the case may be. If you move to a developing country, you're also scared because it's new, right? And you're also taking risk because you need to integrate it into a new culture. So everything is risky. That's what I'm trying to say here. That's just one example. If you're worried about Western societies collapsing because of many different reasons, governments wanting more control, then move to a place again where that is not as likely to happen, because a place has been very liberal. You know, Latin America, for instance, you know that people are less receptive to listen. Also in places like Asia, potentially, right? So you find a solution. Same goes with war, conflict. If you think that a certain region is more affected than others, if you are in a place where war is happening today, then you have all reasons in the world to move away from that place, because nothing is more important than safety. Something I forgot to mention is digital currencies. If you want to not be part of this system, if you don't want to live in a cashless society, then you have to move to a place where the government is less likely to do it, because people run traditional businesses. They're not going to run around with, like a credit card machine. They're just not going to do it, right? Or they're just not willing to adjust. Whatever the case is, you have to move to a place where that is going to be constant, at least for the time that you are alive, if it's important to you. What else can be done to survive the 21st century? Where are you located today, and what's your plan for the coming decades? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and investment advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my latest ebook, The Nomad Elite Income Booster, your go-to guide for creating passive income streams using the internet. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.